name is Sam. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Fairygodboss. And Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency. We offer a ton of great free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help you succeed throughout your career. We will be taking questions at the end of today's webinar. You'll find the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, right where you found the chat. You can leave questions as yourself or anonymously. And like I said, we'll get to as many as possible at the end. If you have any comments that you want to leave throughout the presentation, feel free to direct them to the chat. And like I said before, I'd recommend sending your messages to all panelists and attendees so everyone can join in on the conversation. We're also recording today's webinar, and we will be sending it out in a follow-up email along with some resources that Lesa has for you. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox later today. Here with me today is the CEO of Exclusive Career Coaching, Lesa Edwards. Lesa is a master resume writer, certified job search strategist, certified executive and leadership development coach, an award-winning podcaster, a master practitioner of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and a national speaker on job search topics. Whew, what a list. Her practice includes clients on every continent except Antarctica, and she's focused on helping high-achieving mid-career professionals navigate their careers and their job searches. Thank you so much for being here today, Lesa. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much. I always feel the need to explain that I'm pretty sure there's just penguins in Antarctica, so hence the lack of clients there. Thrilled that you guys are here today. Glad to see such a large group of folks. And we're really going to dig in deep and talk about our brain today because it really is the answer to everything. So often when something is not going the way we want it to, say in our career or in our job search, we're not getting the results we want to shift the things we're doing, but we need to back up a couple of steps and shift how we're thinking. And I don't know how to describe it in words. I only know how to describe it in actions. When we don't do that, when we're still thinking the old thoughts, but trying the new actions, it's this. We are butting heads with ourselves. We are not in alignment and integrity with ourselves. And that's always going to be a problem. So we're going to look at how to change those thoughts, how to look at them and examine them today. We have text down there that's interesting. Okay, I think we've covered all of those points. So we'll zoom past this screen about me. So what is mindset? We want to talk about what it is and what it isn't. So what it is an awareness of the negative self-talk that you're engaging in. I can remember so clearly when I first started working with my coach, who I'm going to be talking about in a moment, about this. And I was firmly convinced that I was fully aware of everything going on in my brain. She told me I had to sit down and dump everything onto a piece of paper and take a look at my thoughts. And I sat there for a few minutes with my paper thinking, well, I'm fully aware there's nothing hiding in my brain. And then I allowed myself to kind of open up. And I remember looking at that first list and thinking, well, this explains a lot, doesn't it? So first step has to be that awareness of any sort of stinking thinking that's going on. Then we want to decide what we want to think on purpose. Our brain is 100% within our power to think the way that we want to. No one can make us think anything. I love Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So we're going to decide what to think on purpose. Then we're going to practice those new thoughts, because what's happened is our brain, this is a little brain science, our brain wants to be efficient in what it does. And so when it has to keep thinking a thought over and over again, let's say a negative thought, it puts it in the back as a subconscious thought, and it creates a new neural pathway. So it can kind of run on autopilot and save some brain space for new thoughts that we're having. So we become unaware over time that we're even thinking those thoughts. That's certainly what was happening with me. So we want to practice new thoughts, create new neural pathways in our brain. Not that the old ones are going to go away, but we want to kind of shrink the size of them by expanding the size of these better thoughts. And then what mindset also is not beating yourself up for your old thought patterns. I see this a lot with my clients. Once they become aware of what they're thinking, they want to beat themselves up. So they're thinking, for example, I'm not good enough. So that's a pretty kind of beating yourself up thought, right? But now that they're aware of it, they're beating themselves up for having the thought. So they're piling the beating up on, and that's not the purpose of any of this, obviously. So we want to recognize those thoughts, and we want to be compassionate with ourselves, especially as we are learning this, because we are learning a new process, right? We're learning literally a new way of thinking. So we want to be kind and compassionate with ourselves when we sort of try to backslide or slip back into those old ways of thinking. All right, here's what mindset isn't. This is not about positive affirmations taped up all over your house, although those can be helpful. That's not what this is. It's also not saying things that you don't yet believe. You're not going to go from one day believing I'm not good enough to I am fantastic. That is a bridge too far. But we can go from I'm not good enough to a ladder thought. And I'm going to talk more about ladder thoughts in a minute, but a slightly better thought that then leads to a slightly better thought, and etc. Until maybe we eventually believe that we're fantastic. Maybe we never believe that about ourselves, but let's at least get away from believing that we're not good enough. It's also not thinking everything is rainbows and daisies all the time. This is about feeling the full range of emotions. There are times when it is completely appropriate to be sad, to be completely appropriate to be angry. It's completely appropriate for you to be frustrated. So there's a full range of emotions here that we're talking about. And then finally, it's not looking outside of yourself for validation. True belief in yourself is an inside job. So here are some points in your career when your primitive brain tries to protect you. And remember that primitive brain is the one that's been around since the cavemen. And it doesn't know the difference between a mastodon at the cave trying to eat you and a job, let's say a job search, or a promotion at work, or a conflict with a coworker. And so it has the same reaction. What's different is that we have that executive function brain, that prefrontal cortex, that can step in and say, thank you for your concern. I'm not going to die. I'm going to deal with this. So here are some points when you're just starting out in your career, right? Those thoughts can really overcome you with, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I get my first job? I don't know how to, function in a workplace. Job searches, job interviews. This is the area that I live in on a daily basis with my clients. And seemingly nothing can bring out all of your inferiority and negative beliefs about yourself, like looking for a job, especially when it's as tough as it is right now. Changing jobs. So you're going into a new company, maybe you're changing maybe into a new department in your company. Changing career fields. Oh, well, now we're starting over in a lot of ways. And all of the confidence maybe that we had gotten in this old career field, do we know how to transfer that confidence and that self-belief over into this new career field? Maybe we don't. Getting a promotion, because then that's when the imposter syndrome wants to rear its ugly head, right? When there is conflict, so coworker, boss, anybody, coworker, but also a conflict at home, right? But certainly conflicts in your career. And then finally, when you have, in quotes, failed. And the reason I put the word failed in quotes is because I don't believe in failure. I believe in winning and learning. I believe in success and learning. But failure in the sense that something didn't go the way you wanted it to, that can really rear its ugly head in terms of your thoughts. All right, so how does this graph out? You start out full of hope and promise. You've got this new job. You're new on a job search. So I'm going to be covering kind of all the bases today. If you're employed, if you're unemployed, if you're looking for a promotion, whatever it is, it always works. But there's something new, and you're full of hope and promise about that new thing. But here's what's going to happen. Inevitable rejections and non-responses if you're in a job search. There's going to be problems in your new job. Maybe they gave you a new project and you hit a road bump. Then you decide to make that mean something about yourself, about your marketability, about your qualifications. Your core belief has been upset, has been unsettled. And you start slacking off. I have seen this over and over again with people that I'm talking to in my job search coaching practice. They are hiding. They are metaphorically pulling the covers up over their head and not dealing with it. And of course, then what happens is they're not experiencing success. So what does that look like in a new project? Well, you start to become less than, right? You kind of pull in, you kind of close ranks, you don't take calculated risks. Maybe you're not as outgoing with your team as you normally were. And the lack of success then in your brain means that you have just verified your belief about yourself. I'm not good enough, and here's the evidence. No, that's not why you're not experiencing success. You're not experiencing success because you slacked off your job search. You're not experiencing success because you're showing up as a less confident version of yourself at work. That's the problem. All right, so what's really going on? We've got that lack of core positive belief. I love this, an unshakable knowing of your worth and the value you will bring to the organization fortunate enough to hire you or that already has hired you. And because you don't have this positive core belief or a strong negative core belief, you are creating a negative narrative around your circumstances. And we're going to talk about the difference between circumstances and thoughts. But here's the visual that seems to work with my clients. I want you to picture back in the day when we had buffets that we could go to. I don't know if they exist anymore. You look at this buffet and there is amazing salads and desserts and entrees and vegetables and breads, and everything looks beautiful and healthy and delicious, except in the back on the left is this suspicious looking chicken salad. It's got that crust over the top that's bad news, right? You know what I'm talking about? And you bypass all of that amazing food because you want that chicken salad. That's the thought that we're choosing to think. The bad chicken salad thought. We've got all these amazing things that we can believe about ourselves. My coach says we're all delusional, so we might as well be delusional in our favor. But instead of believing the best about ourselves and making the best of the circumstance, we look back there and we choose the nasty chicken salad. All right, so here's the model. And if any of you are familiar with Brooke Castilla of the Life Coach School, this is her model. She has been a coach of mine in the past. I have worked with her. Highly recommend her podcast, The Life Coach School. So the model is not so much anything that Brooke created, but rather her reflection of how the world works. And this applies to any and everything in the world. Everything is either a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, an action, or result. So we have this circumstance. It is neutral. It is a fact. It can be proven in a court of law. You could go into a court, produce evidence of your circumstance, and they would say, yeah, that's true. And then the thought is what you think about that circumstance. That circumstance is completely neutral until you have a thought about it. And then that thought produces a feeling, an emotion in your body, something like excitement or dread. Based on how you're thinking and how you're feeling, you engage in actions or inaction. I see a lot of that with my job search clients, or reaction. So you do something based on how you're thinking and feeling, and then you get a result. And that result or lack of is everything's a result. Even if you think, well, I wanted a job, the result I wanted was a new job, but I haven't got it. Well, that's your result. I don't have a new job. That's your result. And that result will prove the thought. That's how the brain works. The result that you're getting will prove the thought. So let's say that you're thinking, I'm not marketable. That produces a feeling of inferiority. The action you take is a very minimal job search, really kind of hiding out with job boards, not networking. The result that you get, no new job. The result of no new job proves the thought that I'm not good enough. All right, so let's look at some examples here. We've got some thoughts here. There are no jobs in my field. No one is hiring. There's too much competition for that job. My boss doesn't like me. My coworker is impossible to work with. I don't know how. Fill in the blank with whatever it is you don't know how to do. My workplace is toxic. I have a pretty strong opinion about the term toxic workplace, but I won't go into that now. But those are thoughts that you could be having, right? None of them are very good. So we want to start by separating out the circumstance from your thought about the circumstance. So here's an example. A circumstance is I am looking for a job as an accountant, let's say, an accountant. So that's neutral. You could go into a court of law. You could produce evidence that you have you started looking back in March for a job as an accountant. And they would say, yep, we agree. Your thought is there are no jobs in my field. I've heard that from so many people in 2020 and already this year. And they think that they're just reporting the news. Well, there's just no jobs in my field. So one of my favorite things to do, which I'll mention a little bit later, is have them do an exercise that proves that there are jobs in their field. We can cut that one down real quick because we can find evidence that there are jobs. But I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that situation and apply it to your particular circumstance. So maybe you aren't looking for a job. Maybe you have a job as a blank. But what's the thought that you're having about your job or about your job search, and how does that make you feel? If you were thinking there are no jobs in my field, I would imagine your feeling would be hopeless. Like, what's the point? Like, why would anybody get out of bed in the morning if they didn't believe there were any jobs that they could get? Here's another one. My boss said X to me today. I've decided out of the whole buffet of thoughts, I'm going to pick the chicken salad thought. My boss doesn't like me. How's that going to make me feel? That's not an emotion, but I think that's how I would feel, like, woof, right? Like I want to go run and hide away from my boss. I feel frustrated. I feel defeated maybe. So let's see what we can do about these. All right, so the first one, I'm looking for a job as an accountant. So instead of thinking there are no jobs in my field, what about I found X number of jobs that I'm interested in today, right? So I'm going to go straight to the source. I'm going to look on Indeed. I'm going to look on LinkedIn. I found 5 jobs that I'm interested in today. So I can't keep thinking there are no jobs in my field. I just created evidence that there are, or there are some jobs. There must be some jobs in my field. I'm sure there are jobs in my field. All of those are little baby ladder steps that are so much better than believing that there are no jobs in my field. And that might make you feel hopeful, maybe excited, much better. Another one, my boss said blank to me today. How about, let's say my boss didn't talk to me today. So we're going to turn it around. My boss said nothing to me today. And I've decided the chicken salad thought is my boss doesn't like me. Wah, 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 So instead, what about my boss must be having a bad day? Or my boss is usually pretty friendly with me. I wonder what's up with him today. So I'm just curious. It's not about me. I didn't do anything. Much better feeling. So maybe my feeling then becomes curiosity or compassion. So much better than my boss doesn't like me. All right, so we're going to dig into some strategies to overcome these kinds of things. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Hang on a second, backwards. There. So first thing, separate out the circumstance from your thought about the circumstance. I will often ask my clients, tell me about the circumstance. So let's say they're saying, I've been looking for a job for 8 months and I haven't found one. The circumstance is this drama story. Oh my gosh, it's so much drama. And what I want to know is, I started looking in March. I've applied to X number of jobs. I've gotten X number of interviews. I've had X number of job offers, and maybe some other factual details around that. Totally neutral circumstances. And then there are our thoughts. That's where we get into trouble. Recognize the mind drama for what it is. It's mind drama. It's chicken salad thinking. Become aware of your thoughts and how those thoughts make you feel. As I have gone through this process over the years, and as I use this tool with my clients, I have become so much more aware of what's going on. I'm on to myself. I'm aware of what my brain is doing, and I am on to it. So I can make those corrections very quickly. You get to decide what to make competition mean. So specifically in the job search, or maybe you're in the mix for a promotion at work or a plum assignment. What do you want to make competition mean? Do you decide that you don't have a chance because there's 400 applicants for the job? Or do you decide that you have just as good a chance as everyone else, maybe even a better chance? You want to make small shifts in your thinking. So what I like to do here is when I am, let's just say I'm not confident. Let's just say your thought is, I'm not confident in my ability to look for a new job. Where can you find an area in your life where you have been confident? How can you kind of pull on that confidence level? Well, I was really confident once I got my last job. After about 90 days and I learned the ropes, I was super confident. People started coming to me with questions and for advice, and I was very confident in how I answered them. So I'm going to find a place in my life that sort of refutes that belief that I have, that I'm not confident. Or if I'm thinking that I'm too old to get a job, boy, I'm hearing a lot of that lately. I'm going to think about the upside of being an older applicant. I'm going to think about what I bring to the table that someone much younger may not bring to the table. And then I also want to say, work with a life coach or a job career coach like myself to help you work through these areas if you have struggled quite a bit with these things, and see this as a major deterrent to the success that you want in your career. Some more. This is a big one. Watch who you are spending time around or listening to, because negativity breeds negativity. You cannot be around a bunch of negative Nancys for several hours a day and then be, beautiful in terms of how you think. I want you to be willing to be uncomfortable as you learn new skills. This one is been a game changer for me, because when I am doing something new, perfect example was I decided I wanted to go with a like a document sign company for my agreement with my clients. And I was very frustrated at the beginning, and I was kind of not very nice to them because it was just not clear to me. And I took a breath and I stepped back and I thought, I'm learning something new. Good for me. I'm expanding. I'm learning. I'm excited about that. And I'm giving myself the space to learn the thing, as opposed to beating myself up because I don't already know how to do the thing that I've never done before. I'm going to be uncomfortable and we'll be okay with that. I love the practice of starting each day with a brain dump. I take a piece of legal paper and I usually have a category within this. So for you, it could look like my thoughts about my job search, my thoughts about my marketability, my thoughts about my new job, my thoughts about a specific situation at work. And then I'm going to dump all the thoughts, good, bad, neutral, and out of my brain onto the piece of paper. I'm going to clear, it's kind of a way of clearing out some brain space. I'm going to look at those thoughts and I'm going to decide, do they serve me? Is there one that I want to practice thinking? Is there a new thought that isn't on that paper that I want to decide on purpose to begin to think? And I'm going to practice it. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to say it repeatedly. I want you to practice awareness when the inevitable negative thinking rears its ugly head. But don't beat yourself up for having it. Recognize there it is. For me, it's oftentimes, I'll say, what's the matter? What's going on here? And I'll be, oh, I'm really tired. I'm really stressed out about X. Like, I give myself a break. And then those latter thoughts that we talked about. So we go from I'm not confident to I'm confident in once I get the job, or it could be there are some areas of my life that I'm confident, and I'm going to kind of ladder my thoughts to maybe to where I'm very confident. Maybe I never get that far, but I'm going to ladder my thoughts so that I can continuously kind of improve them. Separate out the facts from the thoughts. This is what I do with the clients who tell me that I get this story, I'm just too old. And it's funny to me because I've got 40-year-olds telling me that, I've got 65-year-olds telling me that, I've got 35-year-olds telling me that. So the first question I say is, who has actually told you that you were too old? Who's actually told you that you were underqualified for that job and that's why you didn't get the interview? Well, no one. Chicken salad thought, right? So recognize there that you're choosing to believe that you're too old, and that's the reason. Now, are there some companies that are not hiring people of a certain age? Absolutely. That's not what we're talking about. I'm saying, what's the benefit to you to believe you are too old to get a job? There is no upside to that thought. recognize, and this has been a game changer for a lot of my clients, if a company doesn't want to hire you because you're too old, because you don't have a certain skin color or a certain gender, you don't want to work there either. They're not a fit. There's always going to be a large population of companies that are not a good fit for any given person. You got to find the ones that are a good fit for you. So move on. It's kind of like dating a guy that you never really liked, and then he breaks up with you and you're all upset because he broke up with you, but you didn't like him anyway. I want you to do, this is the exercise that I was saying that I do with my clients quite frequently, is find 5 to 6 jobs that you're interested in. What qualifications are they asking for in the job description? Do you have them? You could do the same thing with a promotion that you want at work. Get the description of what the job will be and go down the list. Do I factually have all the things they're looking for? That's going to really be a confidence booster. If you don't have them, oftentimes just starting the process. So they want a master's degree. Maybe you can offer to start a master's degree, or you could actually start one, start the certification that they're looking for, and that oftentimes will be sufficient. And then use networking as a way to circumvent shortcomings that may disqualify you from the candidate pool. They want a master's degree, you don't have it, maybe you're not up for that quite now. So you start networking, and you are talking to employers about your fit with the organization. The fact that you don't have a master's degree is not such a big deal, because now they see all your amazingness. I want you to read that, and this is specific for your job search, read the research about how long job searches are taking right now. And that's not to discourage you, but for a reality check. I've seen a lot of clients who have just arbitrarily, especially right now with the job market as it is, they've decided that they want a new job in 4 months. 4 months come and go, no new job, and they've decided something has gone horribly wrong and they are doing something terribly wrong. No, they were never going to get a job in 4 months. How do I know they weren't going to get a job in 4 months? They didn't get a job in 4 months. That's reality. Have a job search plan and do the things every day. You set that out. That's why it's so great to work with a coach in this area. This is going to get you where you want to go, right? If all we're looking for to kind of reward ourselves is we get the job, that's too far in the future. There's too many steps between here and there. I want you to reward yourself every day that you do the things you're supposed to do for your job search. And then at least once a month, I want you to review that job search to see where are you getting traction, where aren't you getting traction, make the necessary adjustments. And then be aware when you are thinking that something has gone wrong. So just like my clients that are saying job search was supposed to take 4 months, I was supposed to get I love it when people say that. I was supposed to get this promotion at work. Well, no, you weren't. If you were supposed to get it, you would have gotten it. You weren't supposed to get that interview for that job, because if you were supposed to get it, you would have gotten it. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. That one really helps me get back to center. Things are like nutso in my world and I'm going in 50 different directions. Okay, nothing's gone wrong. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Now what? It just brings it back to center. All right. Whew. That was quick, guys. When I practiced, I must have talked to myself for longer than I talked to you guys. I want to tell you about some more ways to get help from me. So there's plenty of time for questions, because I think you guys are going to have a ton. So first of all, I have a podcast called The Exclusive Career Coach. I put out tomorrow I'll put out episode 169 or 70, something like that. So there's a ton of content. It is about job search and all things career management. Lots of this kind of mindset stuff in there. I've won 3 awards now. Love it. Hope you listen. I have YouTube videos on a wide range of job search topics, career management, leadership, all of that on my channel. You can look that up. And I do weekly job search webinars via Zoom every Thursday at 4 Eastern. And that's the link if you want to register for those. We have a lot of fun. I would tell you what tomorrow's topic is going to be if I could remember. Hang on, wait for it. Wait for it. Oh, yes, everything you need to know about getting your resume through the applicant tracking system, ATS. That's good stuff. I also encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Find me there. And on my profile, you'll see 2 downloadable PDFs. One is my Job Search Guide 2021 edition, and the other one is How to Assess Resume Writers. So for any of you that are thinking about hiring a resume writer, there's a lot of things to know, and I try to cover all of those in that document. So you are welcome to grab one or both of those. And finally, if you want to talk to me about working one-on-one with me, you are welcome to schedule a complimentary consult. And what we do in that consult is I take in a lot of information, ask you a lot of questions at the beginning about where you're at now, where you want to be, what you've done to get there, what your confidence level is in a variety of areas. And then I prescribe for you what will make the most sense to help you get where you want to go. And if that includes working with me, I let you know what that would look like. But you are welcome to do that. So why don't we've got plenty of time to open it up for questions. Hi, Samantha.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much. What a great presentation. And like she said, we are now able to take some questions. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I see a bunch coming through already.
Good.
Just a quick reminder before we start questions, we are recording this session and we will be sending it out later today. So if you have to drop off early and you want to rewatch this back, you will have the chance to do so. But let's jump in. Elizabeth wants to know, do you have any recommendations to refocus on a particular skill that I need to learn? I feel that I'm blocked and frustrated when it comes to trying to bring myself to learn this skill, and it's really hard for me to concentrate to even start.
Okay, so what was her name?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, you're telling me the feeling part, right? If you think about the model, we've got thinking, feeling, action, results. So you're feeling frustrated, discouraged, whatever those emotions were that you listed in the message. What's the thought that's driving that? I'd love for you, if you can put that in the message, in the Q&A. It's probably something like, this sucks. I don't want to learn this. This is stupid. Something like that. It's something that's driving that frustration, because I promise you, if you were thinking something like, this skill will really help me in my job, or this skill will really help me in my career advancement, this skill will really help me in my job search, you're going to have a very different feeling, a different emotion about it. And that's going to drive doing it, right? So the feeling that you're having right now is like a big stop sign. It's the chicken salad thought, right? So what is that thought? So step one, kind of going back to the beginning, step one is recognizing, what am I currently thinking about this? Step two is looking at that. Is that a thought I want? Does that thought serve me? It does not matter if there's any facts to that thought, if there's truth in that thought. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, do I like that thought? Does that thought serve me and get me where I want to go? And if the answer is no, and I suspect in your case it is the answer, no, then what do I want to think instead? So if I'm thinking this is stupid, all right, I'm not going to go from this is stupid to this is amazing, I love this. So here's an example, because this is what I do when I really don't want to do something and I've got a bad attitude. I chunk it down. One of my favorite things, I say this out loud all the time. If I had a microphone system in my apartment, people would think I was insane, because I'm always walking around going, I don't have to like it. I just have to do it. I don't have to like it. That's not a requirement. I just have to do it. And it's not from a place of like, it's from a place of, okay, it doesn't matter whether I like it. That's kind of irrelevant. But if we're going from this sucks and I want to do it anyway, I really need to learn this thing, then what can I think instead? I could maybe think, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. I only have to do this for 10 minutes. And I find oftentimes when I do that, that 10 minutes comes and goes and I'm fine. I want to keep going. But it's that initial start, right? I don't want to do this. It won't be any fun. It's boring. It's stupid. It's hard. Whatever I'm thinking, I'm only going to do it for 10 minutes. Or maybe you want to think, I'm going to give this a chance. I'm going to give it a try. Maybe you want to think something like, this is probably going to help me in my career. Maybe you're not ready to say, this is definitely going to help me. Latter step would be, this might help me in my career. This is probably going to help me. Something like that. And I think when you have that shift in your thought, you're going to do the things you need to do to get the result of whatever it is, completing the skill set or getting the certification, whatever it is you're going after. So I hope that helps. Did we ever hear from her as to what her thought was, or if she was able to access it?
Yes, she said she feels like she's never going to get it. So I think it's a lot of those
Ah,
self-doubt thoughts of like,
yes,
I just can't
yes.
do it.
Okay, so with that information, Elizabeth, then what you could do is look at, when have I gotten something hard? When have I accomplished something that I was really proud of myself because it was very hard and I did it anyway, right? So you can kind of borrow that confidence, borrow that success, and kind of bring it over into this scenario. If I could do that, I can do this. Hope that helps.
Love that. We had two anonymous attendees ask very similar questions, so I'm going to group them together here. One is asking about quick fixes for negative thoughts. They're starting a new job next week. They're really nervous. And similarly, another attendee asked for techniques to improve their confidence and learning in a new scenario.
Okay, so new job next week. Take out a piece of paper today, a legal sheet, and just, pardon me, but I call it word vomit. I want you to vomit on the page all the nasty stuff. And there's probably some good thoughts too, hopefully, that are going on about the new job, right? So beliefs that you have about the new job. It's going to be hard. I'm scared. I won't know anybody. I have a sharp learning curve, like whatever it is, get it all out there. And take a look at those thoughts and decide if those are the thoughts that you want to think. So hopefully in there somewhere, there's a grain of something, maybe, let's just say it pays well, right? So you've got all these negative thoughts, but this job pays really well. So you could kind of focus on that. I'm excited to be bringing home a paycheck again. I'm excited to be earning money again. I'm excited to learn. I might, maybe you're not excited. Maybe that's a bridge too far. I might learn some new things in this job, right? So find something that you can focus on that isn't as negative as the stuff that's going on in your brain right now, to make that little shift. But doing that download, that thought download, get it out of your brain onto paper, take a look at it, and see if you can think something that's going to make you a little bit more excited about starting the new job. And by the way, congratulations for starting a new job. So the other one was, Samantha, help me with the second similar question and see what I can add for that one.
Almost started talking on mute, as I always do. Kind of the same question here of like any tips for improving their confidence and like when they're learning something new to remain confident in those situations.
Yeah, I think when you're learning something new, it really gets back to that recognition, kind of giving yourself a pat on the back that you have been willing to learn something new, that you're not expected to be an expert in it yet. And I think also kind of connected to that, when you open yourself up like that. So if you're thinking, this is hard, it's new, I don't know how to do it, it's like a stop sign. But when you think something that kind of opens you up more, then you might get creative. Like, who do you know that could help you with this, help you to learn this? Or what resource have you utilized in the past that you could return to, right? So great example is if you think, okay, new skill, I'm going to learn this, I can do this. Maybe you decide, I'm going to go on Fairygodboss and I'm going to post a question about what I'm struggling with and get some advice. So you're open to that kind of thing. But if you're thinking, this is hard, I can't do it, big stop sign. So I hope that helps.
Awesome. Again, kind of three questions, all on the same page here. So I'm going to ask them as one. And all anonymous attendees, by the way, they asked, do you have any advice for recovering confidence after a workplace bullying situation, especially if you plan on staying with that organization? And the other questions are very similar, just, you know, your thoughts on these kind of workplaces and how you can rise above these situations.
Okay, so I would do a thought model. So that's the CTFAR. On the situation. So I'm going to make some stuff up, but we're going to just pretend that this is the facts of your bullying situation. So the circumstance, again, has to be neutral, something that you can prove in a court of law. So John said X to me. John did Y. John said C, whatever it is, right? So facts. My thought about that was, he stepped over. Okay, so there was an example of, yesterday on Fairygodboss with someone who was really concerned about what someone had said to her in a meeting, right? She felt a little bit bullied about that. And so my response to her was to really look at what she was making that mean about herself, right? So Eleanor Roosevelt, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So really separating out my thought from the fact. So there may be actual damages here. You may have been harmed in some way physically. Maybe your job was put into jeopardy from this bullying. There could be something like that. But what are you thinking about the situation? Are you thinking that this is something wrong with you, that he did this? Are you making it, are you making connections between this and other experiences you've had at work, and you're making a pattern maybe that doesn't really exist? You're deciding that I left myself open for this bullying. I did something and that's why I was bullied. Or are you thinking John must have had a bad day, or this is how John, maybe it's always the way John performs at work. So you're like, John, well, that's just John. That's the way he performs. How are you going to feel about that situation? And then what are you going to do about it? So really getting clear on the situation, right? Okay, so here's what happened. That's the circumstance. Here's what I thought about it. Here's how it makes me feel. And you can do this retroactively. You can look at what was my model when it happened, and then you can decide that you want a different model now. So in retrospect, I want to look at this as John said X. I want to think that that was on John, not on me. That had nothing to do with me. That makes me feel maybe neutral, or maybe it makes me feel exonerated. And as a result, I just keep on doing me, right? There's nothing I need to change because I didn't have anything to do with the bullying. And as a result, whatever result you're looking for, success at work, peace in the workplace, that kind of thing. So really recognizing what has John done. And if I had any role in this, if let's just say I somehow did something that might have opened me up to bullying, I don't think that's possible. Maybe it is. But if I've done it, I want to own it, right? I'm going to take responsibility at that. I'm going to look at that, but I'm not going to beat myself up. That's where the line in the sand has to be. If I made a mistake in some way, I acknowledge it, I own it, I don't beat myself up for it. So if you've got to go back into that workplace, I'm assuming John's still there, then it might be time for you to have a conversation with John without knowing the specifics of the bullying. I don't know whether it's appropriate to have the conversation with John or to have the conversation with John's boss, or what exactly. But if you can get that model nice and clear so that you recognize what's on John and what, if anything, is on you, then you can have that conversation, hopefully from a place of maybe curiosity and kind of neutrality, and maybe take at least some of that emotion out. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. We actually hosted a webinar last week specifically about bullying in the workplace and different tactics and strategies you can use. So if you're having a situation like that, I definitely recommend checking out that webinar. There are definitely situations that you can, as Lesa gave you great advice, to handle by yourself. But sometimes those situations can go a little too far and might need to involve HR, in which case, make sure you do your research and get the appropriate people involved. But we have some more questions coming in. Lesa, actually, we had an ask. Would you mind going back to the Brooke Castillo model? I think it was the circumstance, all that. Somebody just wanted to review that again. And then I'll jump into more questions.
So that's the model.
Okay, thank you. And Elizabeth, if you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them and I can ask them. But in the meantime, an anonymous attendee asked about a situation where their company is urging them to work with their manager or HR leader to help drive their career. They spent 3 years at this job so far, and they don't think that their boss will ever help them. They don't think he's capable and he's not willing. And they're not really comfortable with their HR department. They actually, not a what can I do, but they wanted to know, like, do I actually need these people? Like, and if I do, how can I work with them? They want to know, they think they can, they're asking if they can just do it by themselves. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to unpack there. So let's start with doing a model on what's going on with the boss, what's going on with the circumstance or with the HR, to kind of separate out what's actually happened from what you're making it mean. So really getting clear on what evidence do I have that my boss is not going to help me with this? What evidence do I have that I can't trust HR? Is that chicken salad thinking, or do I have evidence for that? The first thing that came up for me as I was listening to the question was, who else within the organization can be your advocate / mentor? And that's really kind of two different things. But thinking about your specific situation and your goals for the organization, what was the help you were trying to get from the boss? What's the kind of help that you were hoping he could provide? I'm assuming it's a man. I don't know if he said he or not, but let's just say it's a man. And if I can't get that from him, okay, if I can't get that from him, who else in the organization could help me with that? Where can I get the same kind of support that I need from someone else? I understand the HR thing. I hear that from people a lot. And so unless there is something actionable that he has done, such as sex discrimination or harassment of some sort, something kind of actionable for HR, I'm not sure there's much that they're going to be able to do, unless you want to go to them and say, here's the situation, here's what I need, and just very neutral. My boss isn't able to provide that, or I don't feel like I can get that from him. Who else in the organization would you recommend that could provide this for me? So if you can't kind of identify somebody in the organization that can provide that for you, HR may be able to help you with that piece of it. I would tread lightly on that one. I think the other thing that I want to say about this is, and you didn't say that you wanted to leave, but that often comes up kind of as a thought with these kind of questions, is it's not working out so well at work, or I'm not getting along with my boss, whatever, I'm thinking about leaving. And what I always recommend with people is that you do everything in your power to get clean on your thinking about your current job before you leave, because it's your brain. And guess what? When you go get a new job, your brain is going to come with you, I hope. So you're going to have that thought. There's going to be kind of residual thoughts going on there that's going to carry on over into your new job. So I really want you to get clean on that, right? And you can't do anything about your boss. You can't change him, can't change HR, can't change anybody, but you can change how you think about this job. And so what it could be is a matter of looking at what are the good things that are going on at work. So I'm having thoughts about, I really like X about the company. I'm really getting paid well. I like the location of my job. Really focusing on what you do like. I have a coworker that I have become really good friends with, and really focusing on the positive aspects of the job before you go leaving. Because if you leave mad, you're going to show up somewhere else mad. It's going to be there, I promise. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think they mentioned something about they don't think that he's willing to help them. Make him want to help you. Make yourself so indispensable to him. Make yourself so good at making him look good that he just has to want to help you. I mean, yeah. I'm a little biased, so you're a Fairygodboss member, so I'm going to assume you're already a pretty stellar individual. But beyond that, make him see it. I know it's easier said than done, but I think Lisa's advice is definitely pointing you in the right direction. Lisa, okay.
One thing I want to say about that is my podcast last week was on how to things that you can ask your boss to improve your relationship, questions. And then not tomorrow, but the 31st, that episode is going to be on how to make the most of your one-on-ones with your boss. And those two in tandem, I think, are really going to be powerful to address what we're talking about here. I was working with a client yesterday who said she started a new job in January, and her boss just keeps canceling her one-on-ones. And so I was coaching her through this process, because those one-on-ones are so valuable to you, and you want to build that relationship with your boss. You want him to really want to help you, want to know what's going on with you. You want him to see how you are making his life better. You're making him look good. And those two podcast episodes really help with that.
Yeah, those sound like great resources. Definitely check those out to that anonymous attendee here. If you would have be so kind, a few people have asked, could you just walk us through this model one more time?
Absolutely. All right. So anything in the world is either a circumstance, a thought, a feeling, or an action. So a circumstance is a neutral fact that's out there in the world, and it's a fact. There's no emotion to it. It's just completely neutral. So an example of a circumstance in your job search would be, I have been looking for a job since March 1st. I was furloughed from my company on July 1. I have applied to 14 jobs. Totally neutral, no opinion about it. But then you have a thought about that circumstance. And that thought could be, I should have had a new job by now, or what am I doing wrong? Or I must not be a marketable employee. That thought is going to drive a feeling. So a feeling is an emotion word. So happy, sad, dejected, frustrated, excited, energized, enthusiastic. Those are all feeling words that are going to come directly from the thought that you're having. That thought feeling combination is what's going to generate what you do or don't do. So you're either going to take action based on what you think and what you feel, or you're going to be inactive. I see that with my clients where they just slack off on their job search and quit doing it because they think that there's no point in it. And then that's going to generate a result. And everything, there's a result to everything. So as I said earlier, if you have been looking for a job since March 1st and you still don't have a job, that's your result. You don't have a job. It may seem like it's a lack of a result. I promise you it's a result. So everything that goes on in your life can be plugged into this model, and you can then work the model, kind of fill out the other things. So let's just say, I'm going to come up with some things off the top of my head. For me, a lot of times, and I don't have this very often, which is why it's so unusual when it happens, but I'm just having a funky day. It's not, I hate to use the term that I'm in a bad mood because I don't really think that's true, but I just feel funky. Like I'm not myself. So I'm having a feeling of maybe lack of enthusiasm. Like I'm unenthusiastic. I don't know if that's a word. So then what I'm going to do is get into my brain and I'm going to say, okay, what's the thought that's causing that? What's going on there? And what is that causing me to do or not do? Well, it's causing me to be kind of grumpy to people. Maybe I'm thinking, I don't want to talk to this person today. I don't want to have, maybe I've had a difficult client relationship. This doesn't happen with me. I love my clients, but let's say I had a client who was we call them PETAs. I think you know what that means. I have a PETA client. And I'm thinking, oh, I got to talk to Sue today. I've got to, ugh. And then that's making me feel funky. And then my action is I'm just kind of grumpy to everybody. And I'm just dreading, like I'm like working myself up into a lather about having to talk to Sue. And as a result, maybe I don't show up as the best version of myself for Sue because I've got this attitude about Sue. So that would be an example where I can plug in a feeling. I could also plug in an action. So let's say that my action is, let's go back to the job search. My action is I'm not doing any networking for my job search. All I'm doing is looking at job boards. All right, so that's my action. And then the result I've gotten is I'm not getting any interviews. I haven't had an interview since October. All right, I'm going to work it back up. All right. Well, the feeling I have is when I think about my job search, I'm like frustrated. Ugh. And then my thought is, I'm never going to get a job. Right? So what we're talking about here is I have an awareness of, in this case, the action that I'm taking or not taking. That's what's kind of on my mind. It could also be, I could be thinking, why haven't I got a job? My result, I'm not getting any interviews. Work it back up from there. Maybe I'm very aware of the fact that I'm thinking how much I dislike my boss. Maybe I'm thinking about how I'm really, really mad at this coworker, right? So you figure out what is it I'm aware of that I want to kind of work with. What am I consciously aware of? Plug it in and then work the model from there. It's always going to be in alignment. So I promise you, if you say your thought is, I hate my boss, and your result is, I'm a great employee, something has gone wrong, because that thought is not going to drive you doing a great job at work. So you really want to make sure everything is in alignment and that you're telling yourself the truth.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And then we're almost done with time here, but I want to ask one more question. I think it's relevant to the conversation. It's from a different Lisa, and she wants to know, do you think negative self-talk is more prevalent in extroverts or introverts?
That's an interesting question. Um, what I will say is that it seems to come with the ovaries. Um, it's so fascinating, but I will say that even the guys have done some real negative self-talk as their job searches have gone on. But in general, apart from 2020, 21, it's so interesting to me as I work with the dudes can put the most positive spin on anything, right? And they think they will score themselves higher on their confidence level in all the areas of their job search. They think everything's fantastic, and that really does serve them, right? They're delusional in their favor, and that works. The women automatically go to, must be something I've done wrong, I've screwed up, I'm not good enough, whatever. So I think in terms of the Myers-Briggs, I think you'd have to look at the whole personality type and not just extroversion versus introversion, because extroversion versus introversion speaks to how you orient yourself to the outer world. And really, it's going to be more about I think the inner two letters is what we're talking about. So how you process information and how you make decisions. But I also think you have to look outside of personality type to really get a grasp on the model and the thought processes, because it really is separate from your personality characteristics. Is what are you thinking? What are you allowing yourself to believe about yourself, about your specific situation, your circumstance?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I mean, we see it even just with job applications. Is a stat we use all the time at Fairygodboss that I think men will apply to a position if they meet only something like 50 to 60% of the requirements for the job, and women won't apply unless they meet like 90%. So there's evidence to prove that what you're saying is very true in practice as well.
Yeah.
But I think that about wraps up time. So I want to say thank you so much, Lesa, for your
Thank
time and
you.
answering your questions. Thank you to everybody who joined in for today's session. As I mentioned, we will be sending out a follow-up email later today with Lesa's contact info, as well as the recording and some resources that she mentioned. Lesa, do you have anything you want to wrap up with before I end things?
I want to thank you guys for coming today. This has been a lot of fun, and I am more than willing to ask or answer any questions that you have subsequent. If you start thinking about this and stewing, shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to answer those questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you at the next one. Bye.
Bye.